Chuck and I are going to put together this Psalm 139, one of my favorite Psalms. I talk about it in the book. And, I love this Psalm because it is that sense of the presence of God at every moment. And so I've even choreographed this where I had a dancer moving with another dancer behind, moving in the same, almost mirroring or shadowing. And so it's that sense of the ever-present Spirit. And so I want to create a sound bed for this together. And I'm going to, because this is an example of underscoring being more foreground than background. In other words, this is going to be more of a dialogue between us, two voices, rather than one voice with some background music.
Right.
So two very different ways of underscoring.
Yes. And with this one, I'm actually going to choose a strings that'll suspend the root note. Mainly I'm choosing it because it allows me to put dissonance and resolution in what I'm going to do, but it also creates a constant foundation, just like the psalm talks about God being constant no matter where we are.
Oh, I love that.
This is almost it's got two purposes for it. It
represents. Yeah, so it's musical, but it's also theological.
Yes.
Musician is theologian.
There it is.
Yay!
Would that be a meologian? No.
Okay, here we go. Okay. O Lord, you have searched me, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I stand. You understand my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Where can I go from your spirit? From your presence, where can I flee? If I go up to the highest point, you are there. If I sink to the depths, you are present there. If I take the wings of the dawn, if I settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall guide me, and your right hand hold me fast. Truly, you have formed my inmost being. You knit me in my mother's womb. I give you thanks that I am awesomely, wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul also you knew full well, nor was my frame unknown to you. When I was made in secret, when I was fashioned in the depths of the earth. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. I try to count them, they are more than the sand. I come to the end. I am still with you. Yeah.
So I was able to use a lot of low-end stuff and a lot of high-end stuff. I didn't want to overdo it, so I spent a lot of time just concentrating on open thirds. And once again, the string added a nice little opportunity for it to be distanced. Even when you talked about knitting me or creating me or forming me, I changed the entire structure of what the music sounded like. I was in the key of A, and then all of a sudden I threw a C major in there, which brought that whole phrase right there to life all of a sudden.
Right. And we need that. I mean, this is a reading that has some length, right? It's not just a couple of paragraphs. And so, it felt like that brought some variety in there that helped us to stay attentive to the content.
Yes, if I just did this over and over again.
Right.
The whole thing.
Right. Then we stop. We get lulled, right? We stop listening. And the other thing, I mean, if you had done that, that would have created monotony. You know, my favorite phrase, the McFeeism, monotony comes in many forms. That would have become monotonous. But also, if I had had the same rhythm through the whole thing with my voice, that would have become monotonous. So in other words, the danger in when you begin to do this and you try to make room for each other, especially if a reader is making room for a pianist to be another voice, is the temptation to always pause at the end of every phrase. And so while the beginning, there were many more pauses. When I got to, if I take the wings of the dawn, if I settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall guide me, your right hand hold me fast.
Yes.
Right? So it's the musicality of the reader's interpretation as well.
And when you did that, it also allowed me to. I actually moved up with you because I felt there was a rhythm that you were doing.
Right.
So we became, as opposed to individual dances that are responding to each other, we almost became a duet at that point.
Oh, nice.
And then we separated again and
right, exactly.
did the call and response. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and so the point is that you kind of have to rehearse these things, right? In order to find Chuck and I have been working together for a very long time, but we still rehearse everything before we do it because we have to kind of feel each other out and feel where the piece is going to go. You know, where I have to read it out loud and see where are those times when there's a crescendo in the rhythm of my interpretation so that we can find those spots. And it's still not going to, if we're improvising, it's still not going to be exactly the same in worship as it was in rehearsal, but at least we know kind of what the rhythm is and the pace is that works.
And just as a dancer, a couple that's beginning to dance, you're going to step on each other's toes.
Right.
You know that's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And you have to be aware that that's going to happen to begin with. You have to learn from your mistakes. And it took us a while to learn where I've got to back off or where I can come forward or where you need to pause.
Right.
And it didn't come overnight. It did take a lot of not just talking through, but we had to practice quite a bit.
Yeah.
And in services, we made mistakes and learned from them and did it again.
That's right. Just the other day we were practicing the end of a sermon, and I was going to tell us a very personal story, and I wanted there to be some underscoring in that. And I knew that there was a line that was very important. And when we practiced it, because it was the first time you had heard it, you played at the very end of my line, which felt like it was stepping on it, right? Because I want to make sure that phrase people got, and they weren't distracted from it. So we were able to say, okay, that's the line. We need to make sure that line doesn't get stepped on.
And what was beautiful about that, before you even said that, I could tell you went, ouch, like I stepped on your toe.
Right.
And because I've done this with you long enough that I know I can feel it when things don't work right, things are not happening. And so you didn't even have to tell me that happened. And we already knew it.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's because of the working relationship and the practice that we put in doing this over and over again.
Right. So it takes time to learn how to do it, but it's so worth it. Now, let's talk about what if you're a pianist that only reads right off the page, and you've been asked to underscore this song. Okay. Because you just made up you did your film composer thing, and you just made all that up. Now, let's say that we're going to bookend this with, say, the song Spirit of the Living God. Okay. And you just read right off the page. Okay. What can you tell folks who, feel like I don't have those skills that Chuck has? What would you do to have a palette to work with just by having what you have in front of you?
So the music itself has all of the ingredients that you need to create any type of these sound beds. So Spirit of the Living God, I might take each measure and maybe just play a certain number of notes that are in that measure. So as a musician, you learn to play everything that's on paper. The composer wrote it that way, and you're supposed to play it that way. Right. But when you're thinking about creating an atmosphere, you don't want people to recognize what you're playing sometimes. Right. So I would take Spirit of the Living God, and maybe I would play the second beat of every measure out of time. So I wouldn't think, I I wouldn't think, Spirit
Right.
I wouldn't count that out.
Right, you're not going to take it out of tempo.
Take it completely out of context. And then
Yeah.
once you get used to maybe doing just the first downbeat of every measure, then start messing it up. Maybe do the second and the fourth, and then the first and the third, and
Right,
the second
right.
and the fourth.
Right.
And then change the octaves and move them around. And then maybe just choose one or two notes from each one of those downbeats. And then before you know it, you've got these really great harmonies that are being created without a melody.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to recognize that song you're specifically playing,
Right.
but you're able to create this atmosphere. And
Right.
I like to tell accompanimists sometimes if that doesn't work, turn the hymn book upside down and actually play the piece backwards with the bass clef being the treble and the treble being the bass clef. And you can come up with some really cool chords that
Yeah.
way that could create tension and resolution.
Yeah, interesting. And something that you're alluding to is playing with it, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
So for pianists like me, who I didn't ever get to really learn how to improvise or much about music theory at all. I mean, most of what I know about music theory comes from hearing you talk, when we teach together. But I think one of the things that I have learned to do is to just play with it and go, okay, let's see. If I take this up an octave and I only play the chord and then maybe I just, hit a couple of notes here and there every once in a while, you just have to play with it.
You do. And each hymn or any piece of music that you're reading from can be used in a wide variety of ways.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pull out Spirit of the Living God and think this can only be used as an ethereal song. There's ways that you can make that rhythmic accompaniment a little bit more upbeat if you needed to accompany something that had a little bit more drive to it.
Right.
Which doesn't normally happen in a lot of stuff that we do inside the church stuff. You're not really looking for something that's unless it's a polka mass or something.
Right.
But one piece of music itself, just one sheet of music, has thousands of possibilities.
Right.
And the hymn book itself, if your church has one, you've got endless sound beds inside of there.
Right.
Just
No matter
by
what the piece of music is.
just by removing the melody.
Yeah.
Just by removing the melody.
Great. Yay.
All right.
Thanks, Chuck.
Always great to be with you.